My friends, my fellow travelers on this incredible journey we call life, let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about it. When you close your eyes and you imagine yourself speaking English, what do you see? Do you see yourself hesitating, searching for words that seem to hide just beyond your reach? Do you see yourself feeling that familiar knot of anxiety in your stomach, that fear of making a mistake, that feeling that you are somehow less than who you really are because you cannot express yourself with the fluency you desire? Or do you see yourself standing tall, speaking with confidence, connecting with people from all over the world, expressing your thoughts and your ideas and your very soul with clarity and power? I want to tell you a story today. It's not a story about magic or about some extraordinary talent. It is a story about a simple habit, a tiny, almost insignificant daily practice that transformed my entire relationship with the English language. And more than that, it transformed my life. It opened doors I never even knew existed. It gave me a voice I didn't know I had. And I believe, with every fiber of my being, that it can do the same for you. Now, let me paint you a picture of who I used to be. I was a person who had studied English for years in school. I knew the grammar rules. I could pass a written test with relative ease. I had a vocabulary that, on paper, seemed adequate. But when it came to actually speaking, to opening my mouth and letting the words flow in a natural, spontaneous way, I was paralyzed. It was like I had all these beautiful, intricate tools in a toolbox, but I had no idea how to use them in the heat of the moment. My mind would race. I would think about the sentence structure. I would worry about my pronunciation. I would second guess every single word. And by the time I had finished constructing the perfect sentence in my head, the conversation had moved on. I was always one step behind. I was a prisoner in my own mind, trapped by my own fear of imperfection. I would see other people who had learned English as a second language just like me, speaking with such ease and confidence. They would make mistakes, of course, but they wouldn't let it stop them. They would just keep going, their ideas and their personality shining through the imperfections. I would look at them with a mixture of admiration and deep, deep envy. I would think to myself, what do they have that I don't? Why can't I just let go and speak? I felt like I was wearing a mask of silence. I could not show the world who I truly was because I was too afraid of saying the wrong thing. It was a profoundly frustrating and lonely experience. I was surrounded by a world of communication, and yet I felt completely isolated, and I tried everything. I tried to cram vocabulary lists. I would spend hours memorizing hundreds of words, only to forget them a week later. I tried to study complex grammar rules until my head would spin. I would read textbooks, do exercises, and watch videos, but nothing seemed to work. It was like trying to fill a leaky bucket. I would pour all this information in, and it would just flow right back out. The knowledge was there, somewhere in my brain, but I couldn't access it when I needed it. It was trapped in the theoretical part of my mind, never making the leap to the practical, to the instinctive. I even tried to have conversations with native speakers, but I would be so nervous, so tense, that I would freeze. I would stumble over my words. My pronunciation would become garbled, and I would feel a wave of shame wash over me. I would walk away from those conversations feeling completely defeated, thinking that I would never ever improve. I convinced myself that I simply didn't have the aptitude for languages, that it was a gift that some people were born with, and I was not one of them. I was ready to give up. I was ready to accept a life of limited communication, a life where my true self would remain hidden behind a wall of silence. But then, something happened. And it's the reason I'm standing here today. I had a realization. It was a simple realization, but it was a profound one. I realized that the problem wasn't my intelligence or my ability. The problem was my strategy. I was trying to learn a language the same way I would learn history or physics. I was treating it like a subject to be studied, a body of knowledge to be memorized. But language isn't like that. Language is a skill. It's more like learning to play a musical instrument or learning to play a sport. You can read all the books you want about the theory of how to hit a tennis ball. But if you never step onto the court and actually swing the racket, you will never, ever learn how to play tennis. You have to build muscle memory. You have to make the movements automatic. And that is exactly what I was missing with English. I was all theory and no practice. I was building knowledge without building instinct. I was filling my head with information, but I was not training my mouth and my ears to work together in a fluid, automatic way. I needed to bridge the gap between my conscious knowledge and my unconscious ability. I needed to practice, but not just any practice. I needed the right kind of practice. I needed a practice that was sustainable, that was consistent, and that would build the kind of instinctive fluency I was looking for. So I stopped trying to learn English. I stopped the frantic memorization and the obsessive grammar analysis. Instead, I made a decision, a simple decision. I decided that I would spend just 10 minutes a day speaking English out loud. 10 minutes. That's it. It didn't sound like much. It sounded almost too easy. But I decided to commit to it. I decided that for 10 minutes every single day I would speak out loud. Even if I was alone in my room, even if no one was listening, even if I sounded ridiculous, I would just speak. And this, my friends, this was the turning point. This was the beginning of my transformation. At first it was awkward. It felt incredibly strange to be sitting in my room, talking to myself in English. I didn't know what to say. My mind would go blank. I would start a sentence and then stop halfway through because I would get lost or unsure of my grammar. My pronunciation felt clumsy and foreign on my tongue. I felt like a fraud. It was a far cry from the fluent, confident speaker I had imagined myself to be. But I made a promise to myself, and I kept it. I kept going. And slowly, day by day, something started to change. The words started to come a little more easily. My mouth started to get used to the new shapes and sounds. The sentences started to flow a little more smoothly. My mind started to work a little faster. I realized that by speaking every single day, I was building that muscle memory. I was training my brain to think in English, to process the language in real time, without the need for conscious translation. I was building a new neural pathway, and with each passing day, that pathway was becoming more and more worn, more and more familiar, more and more automatic. I started by describing my day. I would come home and speak for 10 minutes about everything that had happened. Today, I woke up at 7 o'clock. I had a cup of coffee for breakfast. The weather was a little cloudy. I went to work. I had a meeting with my boss. He said I was doing a good job. Then I had lunch with my colleagues. We talked about our weekend plans. It was simple, repetitive, and even boring. But it was so important. I was forcing my brain to retrieve the words for the things I did every single day. I was forming connections between the things I was experiencing and the English words to describe them. Then, I moved on to describing my environment. I would look around my room and describe everything I saw. There is a desk in the corner. It is made of wood. There is a computer on the desk. The screen is bright. There is a bookshelf next to the desk. It is full of books. Some of them are new and some of them are old. There is a lamp on the bookshelf. The light is a warm yellow. I would describe the colors, the shapes, the textures. I was expanding my vocabulary in a natural, contextual way. I wasn't just memorizing a list of words for furniture. I was actively using them in sentences, connecting them to real objects and real spaces. After a few weeks of this, I started to feel a little more confident. The basic words were becoming more natural. So I decided to take it a step further. I started to speak about my opinions, my ideas, my feelings. I would pick a topic, any topic, and just talk about it. I think climate change is one of the most important issues of our time. I feel strongly that we need to take action to protect our planet. I believe that renewable energy is the key to our future. I worry about what we are leaving for our children. I hope that we can all work together to find a solution. This was the most important step of all. I was no longer just describing the world around me. I was expressing myself. I was giving voice to my inner world. I was learning to articulate my thoughts, my passions, and my concerns in English. This was the moment when my 10-minute habit truly started to change my life. I started to see the world differently. I would be having an experience, and my mind would automatically start trying to find the English words to describe it. I would be watching a movie, and I would start to narrate the scene in my head in English. I was immersing myself in the language, even when I was alone. I was creating my own personal English-speaking environment. The language was no longer just an academic subject. It was becoming a part of the way I thought and the way I processed the world. But here is the most powerful part. After a few months of this daily practice, something magical happened. I found myself in a real-life conversation with a native English speaker. And for the first time, I didn't freeze. I didn't stumble. The words just flowed. I was still making mistakes, of course. I still am. But for the first time, I didn't care. I was so focused on the person I was talking to, on the ideas I was trying to express, on the connection I was trying to make, that the fear of imperfection just melted away. I was finally present in the conversation. I was finally able to be myself. It was an incredibly liberating feeling. It felt like a cage had been opened. The mask of silence had fallen away. I could finally show the world who I truly am. This newfound confidence didn't just change my ability to speak English. It changed everything. It changed the way I interacted with people. I started to have deeper, more meaningful conversations. I started to make friends from all over the world. I started to feel like a citizen of the world, not just a person trapped in a single country. I began to apply for opportunities that I would have never dared to consider before. I went for jobs that required a high level of English, and I got them. I started to travel independently, feeling comfortable enough to navigate new countries and speak to strangers. My world expanded. The opportunities that had seemed so distant and unattainable were suddenly within my reach. All because of a simple 10-minute habit. All because I decided to stop studying and start speaking. Now, I want to be very clear with you about the rules I set for myself, because I think the rules are almost as important as the practice itself. Rule number 1, consistency. I did it every single day. No excuses, no breaks. Even if I was tired, even if I was busy, even if I felt like I had nothing to say. I would just stand in front of a mirror or even just stare at a wall and I would speak. The consistency was key. It was the daily repetition that built the habit and, more importantly, built the neural pathways in my brain. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't think about it. It's just something you do. My 10-minute English practice became like that. An automatic, non-negotiable part of my daily routine. Rule number 2. It had to be out loud. This is non-negotiable. Speaking in your head is not the same thing. You have to engage the physical muscles. You have to hear the sound of your own voice. You have to get used to the way the words feel in your mouth. Speaking out loud is what builds the muscle memory. It's what trains your mouth and your ears to work together in unison. It's what builds the physical confidence to form the sounds and the rhythms of the language. Mumbling under your breath or just thinking about the words is not enough. You must speak. Rule number 3. Let go of perfection. This was my biggest obstacle, but it had to be my biggest rule. I made a vow that for those 10 minutes, I was not allowed to stop. I was not allowed to correct myself. I was not allowed to worry about grammar or pronunciation. I was just allowed to speak. The goal was not to be perfect. The goal was to practice. The goal was to build the habit of speaking freely. If I couldn't find the exact word I wanted, I would just describe it. If my grammar was wrong, I would just keep going. The focus was on flow, not on accuracy. The accuracy would come later, naturally, as a byproduct of the practice. Rule number 4. It had to be fun. If you're dreading your 10-minute practice, you're not going to do it. So, I made it enjoyable. Instead of forcing myself to talk about boring topics, I talked about things I was passionate about. I talked about movies I loved, books I was reading, music I was listening to. I even started to have imaginary conversations with famous people. I would pretend I was being interviewed on a talk show, and I would answer the questions. I would present my opinions, tell stories, and even argue with myself. By making it fun, I turned a chore into a reward. I began to look forward to my 10 minutes of English time. Now, I want to talk to you about the fear. That familiar fear that I know so many of you feel. The fear of being judged. The fear of looking stupid. The fear of making mistakes. I felt that fear more intensely than you can possibly imagine. It was the fear that kept me silent for so many years. And I know it's still holding you back. But I want you to understand something. That fear is just a story you are telling yourself. It is a story that says, I am not good enough. People will laugh at me. I will be humiliated. But here is the truth. That fear is the only thing standing between you and your dream. It's the only thing keeping you from the voice you were born to have. And the beautiful thing is that it's completely in your power to let it go. The only way to overcome the fear is to face it. You cannot think your way out of fear. You can only act your way out of it. By speaking out loud, day after day, even when it's scary, you are proving to that fearful part of your brain that there is nothing to be afraid of. You are showing it that the world doesn't end if you make a mistake. In fact, the world keeps turning. People don't judge you as harshly as you judge yourself. In fact, people who speak more than one language will tell you that a native speaker will almost always respect you for making an effort. They don't expect you to be perfect. They just want to connect with you. The only thing that truly holds you back is your own self-imposed silence. So, I want you to make a choice today. I want you to choose to be brave. I want you to choose to be imperfect. I want you to choose to be heard. I want you to silence the critic in your head who tells you that you can't do it. The only critic who truly matters is the one you silence by taking action. So this is my message to you. Don't wait. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you have a bigger vocabulary. Don't wait until you have perfect grammar. The perfect moment will never come. The only moment you have is now. Start today. And I don't mean tomorrow. I don't mean next week. I don't mean after you finish reading this. I mean right now. As soon as you leave this room, I want you to start speaking. Go to a private place, look at a mirror, or just talk to yourself and start speaking. Your voice is a gift. It deserves to be heard. It is the most powerful tool you have to express your unique soul, your unique perspective, your unique contribution to this world. Don't you dare let fear steal that voice from you. The world needs your story. The world needs your ideas. The world needs you. And to be fully present in this world, to truly connect, you need a voice. And I promise you that voice is there waiting for you to let it out. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you already are. It's about breaking through the barrier of a second language to finally, fully, and authentically be yourself on the global stage. Imagine, just for a moment, what your life could look like 1 year from today. Imagine your life with confidence. Imagine yourself walking into a room full of people and speaking with ease and poise. Imagine yourself landing your dream job, traveling the world, forming deep and meaningful connections with people from every culture. Imagine the feeling of finally being able to express your true self, with all your nuance and complexity, in English. That future is not a fantasy, it's a choice. It's the direct result of a decision that you can make right now. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Your journey to fluency begins with a single word. And that word, my friends, is hello. Not just to the world, but to a new version of yourself. A version of yourself that is confident, connected, and heard. The world is waiting for you to speak. The world is waiting to hear what you have to say. You have more power than you know. You have more potential than you can possibly imagine. Don't sell yourself short. Don't settle for a life of silence. This is your time. This is your moment. This is your voice. So, please, from the very bottom of my heart, I urge you to start your 10-minute habit. Start today. Start now. Speak. You are more than enough. You are ready. I believe in you. I believe in your ability to not only learn this language, but to master it and to use it as a force for good in your life and in the world. The habit changed my life. It gave me everything I have. And I know with absolute certainty that it will change yours too. This is not the end of a speech. This is the beginning of your new story. This is the beginning of your voice. Now, go out there and speak. Go out there and share your beautiful, unique, important voice with the world. And never ever be silent again. Let me ask you something. When you think about learning to play the piano, what do you imagine? Do you imagine reading books about music theory? Do you imagine memorizing the names of all the notes? Do you imagine studying the history of classical composers? Perhaps you do some of those things, but deep down, you know the truth. The only way to truly learn to play the piano is to sit down at the instrument and press the keys. You have to train your fingers to move. You have to build dexterity. You have to build coordination. You have to repeat the same scales and the same chords over and over and over again until your fingers know exactly where to go without any conscious thought. It is a physical process. It is about the body learning what the mind already understands. Language is exactly the same. It is not just an intellectual exercise. It is a physical skill. When we study English, we spend so much time feeding our brains. We memorize vocabulary lists, we study grammar charts, we analyze sentence structures, we read textbooks, and we solve exercises. All of this is valuable. All of this builds a foundation of knowledge. But knowledge alone is not enough. It is only half of the equation. The other half is physical. It is about your mouth. It is about your tongue. It is about your lips. It is about your jaw. It is about the muscles in your throat. These are physical instruments that you must train, just like a pianist trains their fingers. Think about the sounds of English. Think about the th sound, which does not exist in so many other languages. Think about the difference between the R and the L. Think about the subtle difference between a short E and a long E. These sounds are produced by placing your tongue in very specific positions. They are produced by shaping your lips in very precise ways. If you have never physically practiced making these sounds, your mouth will not know how to form them naturally. Your brain can know exactly how the sound should be pronounced. You can hear it perfectly in your head. But when you open your mouth, something different comes out. This is because your brain and your mouth are not yet working together in harmony. The neural pathway between the idea of the sound and the physical production of the sound is not yet fully formed. This is where muscle memory comes into play. Muscle memory is the amazing ability of your body to perform complex movements automatically, without conscious effort. When you first learn to ride a bicycle, you have to think about every single movement. You think about balancing. You think about pedaling. You think about steering. It feels awkward and clumsy, and you are constantly on the verge of falling over. But after enough practice, your body takes over. You no longer think about any of those individual movements. You just get on the bike and ride. Your body remembers what to do. The same principle applies to speaking a language. When you first start speaking English, you have to think about every single word. You think about the grammar. You think about the pronunciation. You think about the word order. Your brain is working so hard that your mouth struggles to keep up. You hesitate. You stumble. You freeze. You feel clumsy. But what happens when you practice speaking every single day? What happens when you force your mouth to form those unfamiliar sounds over and over again? What happens when you repeat those challenging words and phrases until they feel comfortable? Your body begins to adapt. Your mouth starts to remember the movements. The muscles in your tongue and your lips start to develop the necessary coordination. The sequence of sounds that felt so foreign and difficult at first begins to feel more natural. You stop thinking about how to move your tongue to produce the th sound. You just do it. It becomes automatic. It becomes instinctive. This is the magic of speaking practice. It is not simply about learning new words. It is about training your physical instrument to produce the language effortlessly. Your brain already has the vocabulary. Your brain already knows the grammar rules. But your mouth has not yet caught up. Your mouth is like a musician who has never practiced their instrument. They know what music is supposed to sound like. They can read the notes on the page, but they cannot play them. They lack the muscle memory. They lack the physical skill. So many learners spend years and years studying English without ever truly speaking it. They accumulate a massive vocabulary. They have a deep understanding of complex grammar. But when they try to speak, they cannot. It is as if they have a brilliant mind trapped in a body that refuses to cooperate. They are frustrated because they know the words, but the words will not come out. They blame themselves. They think they are not good at languages. They think they lack talent. They think they are simply not capable of fluency. But the problem is not with their ability. The problem is with their strategy. They have been feeding their brain, but they have been starving their mouth. They have been exercising their mind, but they have been neglecting their muscles. They have been reading and writing, but they have not been speaking. And speaking is a physical act. It requires physical practice. It requires building the muscle memory that allows your mouth to produce the language with the same ease that your brain comprehends it. The gap between your passive knowledge and your active fluency is bridged by this physical practice. Every single time you speak out loud, you are building that bridge. Every single time you force your mouth to form those sounds, you are strengthening the connection between your mind and your body. You are telling your body that this language is real. You are telling your body that this language is meant to be spoken. You are teaching your muscles to remember. And muscle memory is incredibly powerful. Once your body learns something, it never truly forgets. It is a permanent upgrade to your physical being. And that is why your mouth needs muscle memory, not just your brain needs vocabulary. Let me paint you a picture of two different learners. The first learner spends hours every day with their head buried in books. They have a stack of vocabulary flashcards. They have a grammar textbook with hundreds of exercises. They watch grammar videos on YouTube. They take detailed notes. They highlight important rules. They write down example sentences. They study for 3 hours every single day without fail. They are dedicated. They are disciplined. They are serious about their goal of learning English. They believe that if they just study enough, if they just memorize enough, if they just understand enough, the fluency will eventually come. They are working so hard, and they feel like they are making progress because they can see their knowledge growing. They can feel themselves getting smarter about the language. They can explain grammar rules to others. They can ace written tests. They feel accomplished. They feel like they are on the right path. The second learner spends just 10 minutes every day speaking out loud. They don't have a stack of flashcards. They don't study grammar rules. They don't watch educational videos. They simply open their mouth and they speak. They describe their day. They talk about their opinions. They tell stories. They have imaginary conversations. It feels simple. It feels almost too easy. It doesn't feel like serious study. It doesn't feel like real work. They sometimes wonder if they are even making any progress at all, because they are not learning anything new. They are not memorizing new words. They are not discovering new grammar. They are just using the words they already know. It feels repetitive. It feels boring sometimes. It feels like they are just saying the same things over and over again. Now, after 1 year, let us compare these two learners. The first learner has studied for over 1,000 hours. They have an incredible knowledge of English. They can explain the difference between the present perfect and the past simple with perfect clarity. They can define 10,000 words. They can write beautiful, grammatically correct sentences. But when they try to have a conversation, they freeze. When they try to speak, they hesitate. When they open their mouth, the words do not come out smoothly. Their brain knows exactly what to say, but their mouth cannot keep up. They are trapped. They are frustrated. They have spent 1,000 hours building a library of knowledge inside their head, but they have not built the ability to access it quickly. They are like a person who owns a sports car but has never learned to drive it. The car is powerful. The car is beautiful. The car has all the potential in the world, but it is sitting in the garage, unused, because the driver lacks the practical skill to operate it. The second learner has spent just over 60 hours speaking in that entire year. 60 hours of speaking out loud. That is less than 1 hour per week. That is a tiny fraction of what the first learner invested. But that second learner can now speak English with a surprising degree of fluency. They still make grammar mistakes. Their vocabulary is not as vast. They cannot explain complex grammar rules. But when they are in a conversation, the words come out. They speak without hesitation. They speak with confidence. They are not perfect, but they are effective. They are not flawless, but they are understood. They are not grammarians, but they are communicators. Why does this happen? How is it possible that 60 hours of speaking can produce so much more practical fluency than 1,000 hours of silent study? The answer is simple. Silent study feeds your brain, but it does nothing for your mouth. It builds knowledge, but it does not build the instinct to use that knowledge in real time. Speaking practice, even 10 minutes a day, builds the automaticity that is essential for real communication. It trains your brain to retrieve words quickly. It trains your mouth to form sounds effortlessly. It trains the entire system to work together seamlessly. It is the difference between knowing how a piano works and actually being able to play a song. You can study the mechanics of a piano for 1,000 hours. You can understand the physics of sound. You can memorize the names of all the keys. You can read music theory, but until you sit down and actually press the keys, you cannot play. And pressing the keys for 10 minutes every single day will teach you more about playing the piano than 1,000 hours of reading about it ever could. This is the fundamental truth about language learning. It is a skill, not a subject. You do not learn to speak by studying. You learn to speak by speaking. The 10 minutes of speaking are not simply 10 minutes of practice. They are 10 minutes of building the neural pathways that connect your conscious knowledge to your unconscious ability. They are 10 minutes of building the muscle memory that allows your mouth to move without your brain having to think about every single movement. They are 10 minutes of building the confidence that makes you willing to take risks and make mistakes and just keep going. They are 10 minutes of teaching your brain that this language is not something to be studied from a distance, but something to be lived and felt and expressed. Think of it this way. Every single time you speak, you are sending a powerful message to your brain. You are saying, this language matters. This language is real. This language is for communication. You are training your brain to prioritize speed over perfection. You are training your brain to value flow over accuracy. You are training your brain to understand that the goal of language is not to be correct, but to be understood. And the only way to train your brain in this way is to actually do it. To actually open your mouth and speak. Not to read about it, not to think about it, not to prepare for it, but to actually do it. So when I say that 10 minutes of speaking out loud beats 10 hours of silent studying every single time, I am not exaggerating. I am speaking from deep personal experience. I spent years of my life doing the silent studying. I spent thousands of hours reading and memorizing and analyzing. And I had nothing to show for it except a head full of knowledge and a mouth full of silence. It was only when I stopped studying and started speaking that everything changed. The 10 minutes were not just more effective. They were exponentially more effective. They were the key that unlocked everything. They were the difference between knowing about the language and actually living inside it. And I promise you, if you make that shift, if you stop studying and start speaking, you will see the same transformation in your own life.